This episode of Brains on Games is about a race to make connections between words. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald, and this episode, like I said, we're going to talk about a game that's a race between players to make connections between words. It's a game that was sent to me in a big package with a whole bunch of things from Foxmind, which is a company that makes a whole bunch of educational games. This one is called Quick Link. This is a game that can be played by kids age 7 and up. You can play a game in only about 15 minutes, and it works with between 2 and 4 players. Let's take a look at Quick Link. In Quick Link, you are going to be using 2 decks of cards, these round coaster-like cards. One set is a set of objects, and the other is a set of attributes. I mean, really what we're talking about are nouns and adjectives. And you can choose which deck is going to make the grid at the beginning of the game. In this case, I've picked the adjectives to make the grid, and the object is going to be flipped from the purple deck. In a game of Quick Link, you're going to form, either with the objects or the attributes, a grid of 16 cards. I've only put 9 here on the table just to make it a bit easier so I'd have plenty of space. So you set up this grid of 9 cards. Everybody's going to get this suction cup, this squeaky stick. And I'm going to tell you how that works. You flip over one of the object cards, and now you've got to, as quickly as possible, find words that connect with that object. So the word is hair. Maybe you could have dry hair. How are you going to claim a word? You're going to grab it with the suction cup at the end of your squeaky stick. So the suction cups are very powerful. In fact, the instructions, the rule book for the game shows you how, there it goes, shows you how you should take the cards off so you don't destroy the cards, because they will get really attached to these suction cups. So you're just like quickly trying to find as many of these links as possible. You could have beautiful hair or colorful hair, maybe not edible, I wouldn't think, unless you're talking about angel hair pasta. But you're quickly grabbing as many of these as you can. If 2 players grab a word at the same time, then the player whose suction cup, there it goes again, the player whose suction cup is closest to the center is going to be the winner. Now, once you run out of connections, the first player to say, there's no more words here that I can link up with hair, is going to squeeze their stick, which squeaks. This is such a silly piece for a game. You just squeeze your squeaky stick and make a squeaking sound. Now, if someone else can find a link after that, you're going to lose a point. But if no one else does, if you were the first one to notice there's no more connections, then you're going to gain an extra point, a bonus point. Once all the words have been chosen and the connections have been made, the players are going to go through their choices, and everyone votes to determine whether that connection is valid or not. If most people think, not so much, I don't think that's a good connection, then you can sort of sell them on it if you want to. Maybe, I don't know, maybe edible hair, you could convince someone that angel hair pasta would count as a connection. But you may lose that vote, in which case you don't get the point for that card. So if you make a mistake, you don't get penalized unless your mistake is saying that there's no words left that can be connected, in which case you will lose a point rather than gaining a point as you do if you were the first one to notice and you were correct. Once all the voting is done, you've tabulated the points. You've got to write those down on a sheet of paper somewhere. Then you fill in the empty spaces in the grid, and you draw a new card. So now it's another race. You're going to, as quickly as possible, pick which words are going to match with gorilla. So I picked dangerous. Maybe that could be a good one. So that's just how the game progresses. You play 8 rounds like this, and you tally up the points at the end, and the player with the most points is going to be the winner. So clearly this is a game that requires reaction time. I'm terrible at games that require me to go fast. I like to take my time and think about things. I'm a bit of a slow talker, and I'm a little bit analytical about stuff like this. But it is fun to play with suction cups that squeak. That certainly is amusing, and for the kids, they enjoy it as well. And it's great that you can play it with kids age 7 and up, so that's fantastic. I don't usually talk about a lot of games that the youngest players can play, but 7 and up is a great age range for a game like this. It's sort of like a very junior version of something like Codenames, where you're trying to give a clue and find the words in the grid that connect with that clue, but you're not worrying about spies or anything like that, and you're racing rather than taking turns. Plus, you've got suction cups, and like I said, suction cups are fun to play with. Not only do you require good reaction time, good processing speed, really good reading speed, because you've got to read all of those words and then quickly make those connections. So processing speed and reading speed are important. But I mean, your vocabulary is important too. So you're going to be making these connections between adjectives and objects, which is a fantastic thing to be able to do. So you have to be fast. You're using your rapid processing speed. You're using your motor speed because you've quickly got to stamp your suction cup down on those words as quickly as possible. You have to be able to read quickly. You've got 16 words on the grid and they're being replaced as each round goes forward. And you're also developing that vocabulary because you're going to see what other connections people have made and everybody's going to vote. And if someone gets voted down, they're going to need to convince the players that their word was a valid connection. And that's a great exercise. You're arguing your case. You might be debating a little bit, but you're using the words then and thinking about the words in a different way, so it can definitely help kids to develop that vocabulary and make those word connections. And that, in a nutshell, is Quick Link, a very fast word connection game with squeaky suction cups that's fun for even the younger kids to play. Just one more thing. Let's talk about another game that came in the big box from Foxmind, a speedy word game that's literally called Speedy Words. This is a game you can play in about 15 minutes with between 2 and 6 players, and it works with kids age 8 and up, and it's another vocabulary builder. Let's take a look at Speedy Words. You've got another round deck of cards here, so they look a little bit like coasters, and they've got some category on the back. I haven't really shuffled these up very much. They've got a category on the back, and on the other side there's some letters. So on a player's turn, they're going to flip this around. You're going to see 3 letters on the card that got flipped over and a category now on the top of the deck. Only one of the letters is going to match the color of the category. So this category means you're looking for a famous person. You've got a little cheat sheet in the canister that I just showed you that shows what all the categories are in case you forget. So I shuffled up the deck a little bit so you get an idea of what some of these other things might look like. And now you've got a country that you have to think of that begins with the letter J. So you might say Jamaica. That was easier for me to think of than a famous person whose name started with N. You could think of a job that begins with the letter J. A janitor, maybe? You could pick a piece of furniture that begins with the letter E. So you get the idea. You're just like showing these letters, and you've got to think of a word that matches the category that begins with that letter. If you're the first one to pick the word, you get to grab that card, and the player with the most cards at the end of the game. How do you decide when it's the end of the game? When there's only one card left in the stack, you're only going to have a category. You need those 2 cards. The second coaster is what's being used to show the letter. So once you're down to just 1, that's going to be the end of the game. And then you count up how many words people have collected. So there you have another game where you're quickly thinking about information. So processing information quickly, processing speed is the skill, but you're also exercising that vocabulary and thinking about the categories of words along with how they're spelled, that first letter and how they're spelled. Thanks again to Foxmind for sending Speedy Words along. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about Speedy Words or about Quick Link, you can leave them in the comment section below the video, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where previous episodes will go, and the future ones are up there already. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.